Three Beards Fight.
Supernatural is something that isn't supposed to happen, but it does happen.
And no nation which expects to be the leader of other nations can expect to stay behind in this race for space.
What does it take to convince you that the dead do not always rest in peace?
All right. So, welcome to the Three Beards Podcast, by the way. Okay. This is what happens when somebody else doesn't normally do the producing, does here. He doesn't know which button to click. I'm like pressing the one, and I'm like, as I'm doing it, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm gonna have a talk with Austin about labeling because this is terrible. Anyway, welcome back to the show, Dan Duke and Teresa Duke. How are you?
Thanks, it's a pleasure.
We are fantastic, and thank you for having us back.
You're welcome anytime.
Oh God! After that first one, it's like we said, we got to have you back on. And but what way to bring you back on by me just totally punt kicking the intro. Yes. So, everybody, like I said, it might be a little difficult to hear Dan. His mic's a little quiet, so it's going to force everybody to listen intently to this episode, which is good. But it's anyway, the latest book, which I was really interested in it, and when we talked about it, and this is. Jesse James and the Lost Templar Treasure. This one, we kind of touched a little bit on it on your last one, but this one delves into. I mean, who doesn't like a treasure hunt story, buried treasure, mountains of gold, in your backyard? I mean, who doesn't like these things?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It reminds me of Indiana Jones.
Oh yeah. No, it was one of those things. I mean, this might be something that you guys will already, have figured out. I just made a little discovery as I was finishing chapter 4, going into chapter 5. The name popped up again. James Lafayette Courtney.
Yeah. And
just me, for some reason, I counted the letters, and I was like, "That's 22." And then you take his original name with Jesse W. James, that's 11, so that adds up to 33.
Oh, that's cool. I haven't.
Oh wow,
and
that's
so
awesome.
I was like, so that's what I wanted to ask you was maybe was the reason he picked James Lafayette Courtney is because that added up to 32 or to 33. It's 32, which is the Scottish Rite.
Yeah.
One, but then when you add in the W for his original middle name, it becomes 33, which Freemason.
That's really
yeah.
cool.
So that was just a little discovery. So I immediately got out of bed.
Really interesting.
Good job.
Yeah,
that has me thinking now too.
Yeah. So that was just.
I love that.
Yeah, I was just laying back there reading, and all of a sudden I'm like, I've got to remember that for when they're not. So I got up and I just jotted it down.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And that was like I said, for anybody that doubts it, see, there is my late night bookmark.
That's cool.
So, yeah, I kept that as proof. That's what cool. I did. So, we'll get
Hey,
to kind of the
I
story.
know it.
Yeah, no, well, that I'm shocked that
Yeah.
I'm like, this is probably going to be something that they've already
know.
Yeah, that's old news. Oh yeah, that's cool. You discovered that too. Good job.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's interesting. I don't know why, but
No.
it never.
Yeah,
dawned
no,
on
that's really. It has me
Oh,
thinking.
only Craig thinks of stuff like that. That would have blew right by it. I'd be like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
me. Yeah, that's really.
Yeah, because for a long time I was just like, I added them up and I was like 32, and I'm like going, but 33.
Yeah,
and then
me
I'm like,
too.
what if we had the W? I mean, I had the W. That's 33. I mean, so it's got to be, there's got to be something to this. I mean, it's just everything else as you go through. As I'll have you describing the book, everything else. I mean, there seems to be not only. This isn't just some random, Wild West outlaw just digging a hole and throwing stuff in the ground.
Yeah.
And I'll try to remember how to get back to that at a later date when the law is not trying to bust me down, bust down the door. I go, when we get into the, these, just the way that those templates, are laid out. We'll get into that, right here. Like I said, I'll quit filibustering here. I'll let you just talk. We'll just, as we got to it made sense how this was, this was intricately planned. It wasn't just some ignorant guy that just, grabbed a shovel and, got to get rid of it.
Yeah.
So how did this book come about?
Oh, that's
I know. Easy question.
Well, and it opens so many doors, and plus what you just revealed, that opens a whole nother door. I need to look into that. That's really interesting. But well, it started. My mom, when she was growing up, when she was a child, just in all her, the story was passed down through the family about Jesse. And every time anybody mentioned Jesse, somebody always brought up the buried treasures. There were people, some of the relatives just before Jesse died, when he was an old man, some of them would go to his house and just messing around. They'd find, like one lady one time, one of our relatives was, brushing her hand back and forth across some dirt while she was talking to somebody, just playing. And she was lounging in a chair and uncovered a lid. So she started picking at the lid. It was a mason jar with full of silver coins. And, he had it buried all over his front yard, just everywhere around his property. And then, anyway, so the story passed down. And then with that story were photographs. And one item that was passed down to Mom was a treasure map. And that, that really piques your interest. Where's the treasure? And it had codes on it and ciphers. And we tried for a while. At first it looked confusing, and then the cipher was easy enough to break, to figure out. But it never left a topographic marker of any kind. There was no marker. So you had the map. You knew how much he said he'd buried there, but there wasn't any directions as to where it was located. And that was the confusing part. And just over the years, picking away at that and then piecing information that we would find from different sources, everything slowly started to fall into place.
Wow, that was a part like I really liked as I was reading it. It was one of those things that, as you're reading it wasn't the textbook style thing. It's like, here's this information. It was more of that tale, like would be handed down. As you're reading it, we got into, when you started getting into the ties with KGC, the Knights of the Golden Circle. Yeah. And that was when I didn't even know about that part, that this was basically, I guess the best way to describe it was, this is almost like an early day New World Order where they were trying to position themselves all over the place for basically control to take, and that was something that was a new revelation to me. And I'm like, ooh, so it was just, turn pages.
No, yeah, you're right. They wanted their headquarters, according to some, based in Havana, Cuba. And then, they wanted to encompass, the circle would encompass all of the south part of Texas, large part, most of Mexico, Central America, and the northern part of South America. And if they had controlled that, they would have controlled a huge agricultural area. And of course, they wanted it powered by by slaves. They wanted to they wanted slave labor to grow their wealth, and that was what the KGC wanted. That's what the stated goals were. Um, and people attributed all these treasures to the Knights of the Golden Circle, and I thought, okay, maybe that's true. I don't know. There's that brings the into the story the KGC template, the Knights of the Golden Circle treasure template, and everybody had labeled it the Knights of the Golden Circle treasure template. I didn't have any reason to doubt it until I got into researching. After I discovered the dimensions and the size of the treasure templates, I wanted to know who was responsible for all this. And at first, I had no reason to doubt the KGC and their stated goals. Yeah, and that's a good image of the template, one of the templates. I had no reason to doubt that story until I started digging into the treasures, and a lot of those treasures, like Victoria Peak, for example, predated the existence of the KGC by at least several centuries.
Oh
Some of
wow.
the items found in it, and I thought, well, that doesn't make sense. And then I started noticing a lot of the other locations found on the template in different areas around the country also predate the existence of the KGC, and I quickly discounted their involvement. There's no proof that they were involved at all. People like to lump in guys like Albert Pike, Jesse James, and all. It's just a whole famous names from the Old West and the Civil War, and they lump those in. Who's going to contest it? Nobody knows. It was supposed to be a super secret society, so it when it's a society of that nature, it's easy for people to just make accusations and lump people in. Who's going to contest them? There's no records or proof. So it's basically I view that as an entertaining campfire story in a lot of ways. What
Okay.
KGC. So
Well, it's good to yeah, it's a good way to sell the story to people when you can throw in some catchy name like Jesse James. It's like, let me tell you the story about the KGC. Jesse James. Ooh, okay, I'm hooked. All right. Yeah, it's not as interesting. It's in here. Let me tell you a story about a group of guys that wanted slaves and just wanted to dominate. That sounds like the Confederacy. We've already heard about that. All right, just another
The picture you shared, they had some hidden symbols in there. I was trying to see if I could decipher any of them, but I zoomed in. I seen
are you
triangle
about
with some. Yeah,
that one?
yeah. There's a triangle at the very top of the ship. In the G, it's got a H and a 61, but I can't figure out what that would stand for.
yeah, I think that was the letter R. If I'm
It's an
not,
R and a 61
yeah, R and 61 and the 3 at the top. 3,
and a.
5, and
Yeah, 375. It looks like.
Oh, they appeared to write 357 in a different manner.
yeah.
Okay.
But I don't know what the R over 61. I still don't know what that means.
Yeah, and then I saw like this. I'm not sure what the moon with the stars. But is. I'm not. That's the whole part about being a secret organization. You're not going to just tell everybody all your secrets. I mean,
That's true.
but it's that between the template and just the way, I mean, and you progressed as I was reading the story. Like I said, I don't want to jump ahead. Stop me if I am. Where you started connecting it with Kabbalah.
Yeah. That's when everything got weird. It was so interesting, and it still blows me away. Like I said, when I first got on this, Teresa and I both, and our mother, we thought, wow, it's cool. We've got a treasure map. We didn't expect there to be any treasure at the end of it, and we definitely didn't. If there was, we expected nothing more than maybe a quart jar or an old saddlebag with a couple of silver coins in it. And as things progressed and I kept studying it, researching it, we were contacted, like our mother was contacted by the late Wagner Carr. He was a former attorney general for the state of Texas, and he was interested in Jesse, and he had his driver. He was also very interested in the treasures, and he had his driver show us some locations that of two locations of very large treasures that were recovered. One of them is just 12 miles from where I live, and his driver showed my mother and I where that treasure was. She said it, according to her, it ended up in the hands of the Texas Rangers, and that's all she knew about it, or all she would say about it. They recovered it, and she said it took several 18-wheelers back, several trips each,
Huh?
removing gold from that catch.
Wow.
Yeah, and the involvement with that, there was a man who was recovering it and selling it on the black market, and they said helicopters were noticed coming and going from the property, and it was the guy. This guy was pulling the gold out of this cave. It was a tunnel. They tunneled into a cave or something like that. All the gold was down in the cave, and he was pulling it out a little at a time in mining carts. The little railroad track with the cart.
Mhm.
That's what he was using. He was pulling the gold out a little at a time, smelting it in a homemade smelter, and selling it to, according to her, it was black market sources out of Canada. And then it was leaving the country that up through Canada. So the Texas Rangers stepped in and took care of it, and they got a hold of it. And I don't know what happened to it after that. But, yeah, it's an interesting story. I'd like to know where it ended up. But the other site was about 35 to 40 miles from here, and it was. She showed us two sites, and that one was also a large site. All that remained from that was a large hole in the ground and a railroad spur, the remnants of a railroad spur that had been built off off the main railroad track. According to her and to Wagner Carr, that was used to deliver the gold when they first buried it, and she said it was also used. They were going to use it to take it, but anyway, when she showed us that site, it was all that's left is a big hole in the ground, and they turned it into a stock tank for cattle. So that was two sites we had, and then we met another man named George Roaming, and he was a 32nd degree Scottish Rite, and real
Okay.
nice old guy, World War II vet. He's passed since, but real nice man. When he was 10 or 11, he lived near Jesse when Jesse was an old man in his 90s or late 80s, early 90s. And Jesse had hired George and swore him to secrecy to help him move 700 bars of gold, each bar weighing, according to George, each bar weighed approximately 15 pounds. So
God.
George helped him. Yeah, that's a lot. And what's the price of gold today? Like $1,950 an ounce.
Somewhere around there.
It's a lot of gold. So George helped Jesse move 700 bars of gold. Jesse kept 20 for himself, and they buried 680 bars about 20 miles from Jesse's house. That's the gold that's on the Fort Hood reservation, the military reservation.
So did the old man know exactly where it was, or he got so old he didn't know exactly where it was no more?
He according to him, he knew exactly where it was. My mother and I went out to El Paso to meet him, and he drew us a detailed map. And we were excited. We got back home, went straight to that Temple Killeen area, and we started looking for it, and we found out it's on the Fort Hood. So when we told George, we went back to El Paso, told George it was on Fort Hood, and he just kind of gritted his teeth and acted like, damn it,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So I had a question. So technically, this story, it's been intriguing me since we last spoke to you all. Is there any way that you could kind of get with Fort Hood and say, hey, look, we'll split half of it with archives, I mean, is there any way that could be done? I mean, because you all have some rights to it, right? Or no, since it's on their base, they actually own it all now.
That's a good question. We haven't tried that yet. There's so many other spots. I haven't, and I've been busy. I haven't got to that point yet. But that's a good idea.
I don't know. That's the far-fetched idea. Hey, look, we kind of know where something is.
Mhm.
If get attorneys and say, hey, well, maybe if we give you half of the fine, you all are fine. And we keep the other half. I don't know. It would have to be some legals involved, but I'm sure that maybe it could work out in your favor.
Yeah, that could work out.
Well, you wrote about that too in the book as well. Jesse James and the Lost Templar Treasure, available at Amazon. There's a nice book for you. Yeah. No, so as I was reading that, it was amazed me because you talk about all the people that, yeah, come search my property, and then all of a sudden, hey, I'm here to search get out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Same
you're like,
ceremonies.
agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was one of those, just like you said in the book. You didn't tell them where it was. You didn't say, hey, look for the cross tree that is over next to a group of rocks in the shape of this man's head, and at the nose is where the treasure will be buried.
Yeah.
You just told them it's on your property. So what are they going to do? Well, we're going to look for ourselves. What are you going to do? Dig the entire thing up to 8-10 feet down?
That's right.
That's possible.
Yeah.
Quite a few, contact the landowner. It's exactly like you described it. Some of them they all acted interested, and then some would give permission, and they always tried. They would. It's funny watching people work. Sometimes they want to butter you up and get along with you. You're good buddies. I wasn't going to give the location right away. That would cut me out of the whole thing right off the bat. So, and then over one guy, for example, gave us permission. He said, "Yeah, show up. Y'all can show up tomorrow. I'll be here. We can go look for it." And we were excited. And then overnight, you get a call saying, "Oh, I talked to my attorney, and he said it's too dangerous to have people on hand, the liability." And they'd always come up with some kind of excuse like that. And,
So basically, since you acknowledged them, let them know it was there, they probably excavated their whole property by themselves.
I've seen areas where people have looked for it, but they were off. So you can tell where they got a front end loader or something. Like some of the ranchers have cleared out a lot of brush looking for it. And it's always, well, I'll give a little hint. One of the, people, when you go out in the woods or you're out in the countryside and you see a rocky ledge, the rocky ledge always seems to draw people to it. Caves, rocky ledges, large trees, things like that. And it's rarely where you think it would be. And it was based on the template. So they followed the template, and it did wherever the template showed up. It could be in the middle of a field. It could be anywhere. Wherever the template said it should be, it was either on that site or extremely close to it. But everybody naturally runs to the ledge, the rocky ledge, mountains, stuff, someplace that looks like a storybook treasure legend. So it's always funny.
Wow.
Yeah. When when you look at the KGC template and stuff, once you kind of like you did, one of the ones I didn't. You said it, I apologize, I missed it. But the Victoria Park or Peak, the Victoria Peak in New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that like I said, once you start getting some of these things, like you said, and you laid the templates and stuff on there, how things start matching up, like distance. The name's failing me. It's that the old Burton Church in Williamsburg, Virginia.
Yeah,
I was there in Williamsburg.
Yeah, it was 1715. Is that how many miles? Yeah, and I'm not going to take full credit for that. That's what it was, but I looked up and Mark Eddy had put that in the comments, and that helped me out. So yes, yeah, you get those distances, you're able to start now you have, like you said, you've got placement points that you can actually start placing this stuff. So like I said, most of the time, there's probably a good chance that the farmer's looking at that rocky peak, but it's where he's got the pigs in the pig's pen, and there's probably a good chance that it's right underneath there.
Yeah.
But because he doesn't have a starting point, and because he slammed the door on your face, you're like, all right.
Yeah.
I guess don't have anything, and well.
That's right.
Yeah.
A lot of the people, I never told them anything other than, we've been researching, treasures, chasing treasures, and we've got a few maps and leads, and through all the research, you know, I have a strong oh indication. Everything indicates there could be a treasure on your property, and that's how I would always word it. You know, in a nice, polite, but not giving too much information. And they they always it it turned out to be more trouble than it was worth. It seemed. I don't know if the treasure was big, it would be worth a lot more trouble. But they they did that a lot. It was just people slamming the door.
Maybe they were strategically placed there for a reason and not meant to be dug up.
That's another possibility.
Yeah. Oh, that's
So-
good. Yeah, that's good.
So all these properties that you have, think there is treasure at, have you like located the history of these properties? How would he have had ties to these properties? I mean, were there people on them when he had ties, or was this some of the land that his friends owned, or throughout the history of his?
That's a good question. And yeah, a lot of the areas, like in this part of Texas and further west, and areas that used to be Indian territory, it was nobody had title to the land when those treasures were placed there, like Victoria Peak, for example. But I do know, like Albert Pike, for example. I believe Albert Pike was involved with some of these, and I think he was an Indian agent before the Civil War, and he was very friendly with a lot of the tribes, and
Okay.
I think he fostered a lot of good relationships with Native Americans, and I do believe certain tribes and certain characters in those tribes were not in. They were in the loop on some of the treasures, I believe. Like Quanah Parker he was a Comanche chief in Oklahoma. Well, he was a Comanche chief and he ended up in Oklahoma, outside of Lawton, Oklahoma, in a little town called Catch, which he had or near a town called Catch. He had a house called the Star House, and a lot of the people who were listed in Jesse's diary, like the cattlemen, like Dan Wagner, John and Bill Hitzen, and people like that who were well known, like the Hitzens and Wagner were cattle kings. They were very good friends with Quanah Parker, and they even helped build him a house. Quanah kept noticing how generals had stars. You know, they had 4 stars or 3 stars or whatever, and Quanah wanted stars. So they
Okay.
built him a house and put stars all over the roof. And to this day, the house exists. It's called the Star House.
Oh.
And he moved in there, and I think there's treasure legends associated with that, and I believe there's some in that area. And I
Well-
believe Quanah, trying to put this quickly without running on forever on that part.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Just keep
Run on, please.
But Quanah, I think that men like Albert Pike and a lot of the other men, like the cattle barons I'd mentioned, fostered good relations with Quanah and several other tribes, and I think they went into partnership. In a way, it's like we'll help you out if you just keep an eye on these treasures. And
Wow.
they're very trustworthy, and they kept an eye on them.
I wonder, did he have any relations as far as the lodge with Albert Pike? Albert Pike was known to be a 32nd degree Mason. Am I correct?
Yeah, he was also, from what I've seen, a 33rd degree Mason.
Third-
Ended up that way. Yeah, he was. He. I don't know how deep that went in the lodge. That's a good question. I don't know how many were in the know. I don't think too many people. I think they tried to keep it as small as possible. But I also think it went off into other groups. I think the Rosicrucians were involved. Masonic Templar were involved. A few
Yeah.
Masons. I think some of the Masons I know of that were involved may have also been involved with the Templar. But I haven't seen any records proving that yet.
Yeah, but I'm noticing he dealt with a lot of his brothers, a lot of Freemasons in the process of this.
Yes, he did.
Well,
That's
then,
amazing.
like, kind of along that same light, since you just brought up the Templar, because in chapter 7, Gates of Light, this is when you bring in. I showed that image just a little bit ago. Here, I'll bring it back up. It's the man seated, and he's
Oh yeah.
and what you sing is of people. It's going to be probably a little hard for people to see, but down here, like in your book, you've highlighted that there's a hidden image in this painting where I'm circling right here, which coincides with this.
Yes. The
And this it. Yep.
yeah, Porte Lucis. That was translated by Paolo Riccio in the 1516, and it was based on the original work by, I believe it was Abraham Abulafia, who was a Jewish rabbi and mystic and Kabbalist. The map, that map, I kept looking at it. I was trying to and what drew me to that, several things, but one thing was the shape of the tree of life. Because if looking at I know the template, one of the templates is in the shape of the Kabbalistic tree of life. But then, I thought, okay, that's simple until I found out there's several shapes of the Kabbalistic tree of life. And I thought, okay, which shape is it? Is it this A shaped? It looks more like the letter A at the top to me, or is it the other one that's a little different shaped? So that was very frustrating at the beginning, trying to figure out what shape it was. But then I thought, well, I guess the only way you could really prove what shape it was is to find where they are. Go by both templates and hope for the best. But yeah, that book, I was drawn to it by that. I got to looking more into it. Just that photo alone is full of symbolism. He's pointing at the tiles on the floor, and I thought, what's he pointing at? And I got to looking at it.
Yep.
And he looks like he's dressed for travel. And the veil template I mentioned in the book, there's that crisscross shape, which is real big with alchemy and a lot of other mystic traditions. It symbolizes the veil. In India, it could be symbolized as or thought of as Indra's net, or the net of Indra. The funny thing is, every time you dig into the symbolism behind the crisscross lines, it seems to different traditions around the world throughout history, their symbolism all seem to tie in and have very similar meanings, which always amazes me. But he's got the veil on his shoulders. He's pointing at the floor. He's on the floor. When I looked at the tiles, I thought that almost looks like water, the way they drew some of the shadows. And then it dawned on me, it looked like a map. So I got a map that was as close to that time period as I could find. Overlaid it, made it lightly transparent, overlaid it, and matched the
Right,
coastline,
out there.
the New World, and parts of Europe. And I thought either I'm crazy or this is really cool. I mean, it lined up perfectly. And then,
no, go ahead.
what really made me think I'm on the money here was the chair he's sitting on. If you look at the seat, it looks kind of like a rough X shape. And then the dagger tied to his belt looks like a little hook. And the hooked X is not my discovery. That's all Scott Wolter. He's a different man. If you've ever heard of the hooked X, the Kensington runestone up in Minnesota, and I don't know if you've heard of Scott Wolter yet, but he's written several books. He's had a show, Unearthing America. The hooked X, I love the show. I've read his books. It's amazing. He tied that in with the Templar. And I thought, okay, now things are starting. The guy's sitting on a hooked X-shaped chair, and then he's pointing at the floor with a hidden map in the floor. There's the Tree of Life, and he's holding the Tree of Life and pointing at the floor, almost as if to suggest heading west from Europe towards the New World. And I thought that I wholeheartedly believe that illustration alone deals a lot with the treasures here in the New World.
Maybe it's me reading a little bit into it, but it almost looks like the symbol in the center of the X is a rose.
It does look like that. Let me put my glasses on.
It's hard to see in that one I'm sharing there, but it almost looks.
It would tie in my opinion, if it's a rose involved with all that, I always think automatically, and it's Rosicrucian.
Yeah, and that's what maybe that's just me wishing. It's like, ooh, I made another discovery. It's probably not.
Yeah.
Probably not.
Yeah. Also, like the meaning sub rosa, beneath the rose, which is in secret. It's secret. and the rose could symbolize, a secret that's being transmitted. There's a whole lot of symbolism in just that alone.
You
But
said beneath the rose, so that means basically the rose could be given a sign that the map is beneath the rose. I mean,
that's
just
true. That's
maybe I'm
true.
thinking too deep, but I don't know.
Nice. Ooh, we're going
There
down a
are so
rabbit hole
many
here.
possibilities with
Yes.
that, and there's a lot more left to be uncovered. Like the um, his mention of Jesse's name, J.W. James and James Lafayette Courtney, 22 and 11, totaled to 33. And then you're mentioning the rose. I mean, that stuff like that, it just keeps popping up. The more you dig into it, the more things keep popping up. And it's really interesting.
Well, and it's a lot of people just it's art. You can't read too much into the art,
Yeah.
but the thing that I've really started to notice is that the works of Da Vinci, the works that you see some of these people, there's obviously something there because they had to have known this information. The chances that they just randomly drew something that would have all these tie-ins.
Yeah.
There's obviously information that they wanted to convey in their works, kind of as more of, was it code to somebody else? Like, here's your key. It's in my work. It's in my work. But they're just things like that. I mean, this just guy paints a painting of him holding the tree of life, happens to, like you said, be sitting in that X style chair, pointing down at the floor. There's just a lot of things that just there's more of a sense of higher understanding, higher intent than just some random grouping of things just in a painting.
Yeah, yeah, and and if it were just one piece of work, I would think, okay, maybe I'm looking, maybe I'm just seeing things that aren't even there. But when it happens over and over, from that piece of work to like Nicholas Poussin's Et in Arcadia Ego with the hidden symbols in that painting, and it all points to, in my opinion, like Lyra, the constellation Lyra, and all the symbolism behind that. And then you research Nicholas Poussin himself, and he was known to put secrets. A lot of those guys, they hid secrets and transmitted secrets through their works of art, and he had basically admitted that in his day. A lot of people, and it just it when you see time after time all these works of art and other things that you found through your research, and they all point in the same direction. It seems a little. It seems to push the idea that it's just a coincidence further out the door, and I think there was a big purpose behind all of it.
That's like another myth of not. It's not really a myth, but that's like, to get off subject a little bit, with Jack the Ripper. He left everything. Um,
Yeah.
Oh, we lost him. We lost his audio. Oh, looks like he got muted.
He's muted for some reason.
All right, go ahead, Chris. Try again. Somebody got muted.
Yeah, that was off the rim a little bit with Jack the Ripper. He left everything in the art on letting people know exactly who he was in the part of in the slayings and his killings, and he also turned out to be a Freemason.
That's really cool. I didn't know Jack the Ripper was a Freemason.
Look it up.
Wow. So, yeah. Well, and also, like you mentioned, symbols. These days, I think a lot of people, Teresa and I were talking about this not too long ago. Most people in our time, they think they're not even really into symbols. Symbols are just something that's like, they leave it up to, if you see a symbol in something, especially old works of art, a lot of people just kind of like, oh, I don't know about that. But if you think about it, even the alphabet, our own alphabet, is nothing but symbols that we turn into meaning. We add meaning to them, and
Yeah.
so I mean, look at the number 666, for example. You rattle that number off, and people think, oh, that's the evil number. But even in the Bible, it talks about 666 being, the number of talents of gold that King Solomon had delivered to him every year. That was the total of the gold he got each year as tribute from the other nations. And I thought, so that's nothing evil about the number. I mean, you can look at it different ways, and it's kind of interesting how symbols work out like that. You can have one symbol with multiple meanings, and I think a lot of times each meaning each meaning you got, it's like steps of meanings, levels of meaning. The deeper you get into it, the more you find out about it. And what you're told in the beginning ends up being almost completely different once you find what you think is the truth later on, if that makes any sense at all.
Oh yeah.
So,
No, that was part, crazy because in that,
Different meanings.
yeah, I think what was it? God, I was just looking at that too. I want to say that was in the Three Veils chapter. I want to say that was chapter 6. Yeah, you got into that all about just the breakdown of
yeah.
the 6. It was pretty crazy. How you were able to tie that in with the templates and stuff too. It's just the interconnection with these, the maps showing the Templar route as I was going through here. And I was also I wish I could credit the guest that did this. It was on another program, and they talked about the distance. Like, a lot of people are looking from England, France to the New World as this massive distance. But if you look, the distance between the western part of Africa to over in Brazil, that is an incredibly short distance. And so to transport something, it wouldn't take a major sea voyage to have moved something from Africa to South America and then just moved it right up the continent.
That's true.
You could have done these little short jumps. It wouldn't have been this arduous 3-month boat trip hauling tons of gold and treasure across the thing. I mean, there's several different roads, like you showed. You go up towards Scotland, Ireland, it's not that far of a jump to Iceland, to Greenland, to Nova Scotia, and marching on down. You're not doing this massive sea journey. So it is entirely possible that you could move these mass quantities, because we had and the name's failing me. That's terrible. But we talked to him about in Michigan, Ron. We were talking about the ancient copper pit mines, where they're moving all copper from around the Great Lakes there in the upper part of Michigan to to Europe, where they figured that was part of kicking off the Bronze Age.
Oh,
all this copper was brought over there. So it wouldn't be within the realm of reason that trade wouldn't go back the same way it came over.
that's true. I've heard some people claim the Phoenicians were involved in the ancient copper mines in that area. Phoenicians in different groups. And I don't.
Yep.
It wouldn't shock me about the Phoenicians, because even in their day, they were well known as great seafaring peoples. So, and then to find also, like I'd mentioned during the Spanish, when the Spaniards were over, in the New World, just exploring and looking for the lost cities of gold, Estebanico, he was a Moorish man who was brought over, and it ended up everybody died on the expedition. I thought that had to have been a hell of a trip. Yeah. I mean, but I felt sorry for Estebanico and the friar, the priest who went with him. They were the last 2 survivors. They make it down to Mexico City. They send word back to Spain. The Spain orders them to go back. And I thought, they just went through hell, and now you're sending them back into it. No, and so they went back out into it. And Estebanico, I thought he was a smart one. They claimed they thought he died, and I'm getting off topic here, but I thought he and the priest didn't like each other very much. They, according to the history, they didn't get along too well. Estebanico was trading turquoise and other shiny objects for more Native American wives, and he had a little group of wives with him, and the priest didn't like that. So Estebanico would travel further ahead, like a day ahead of the priest, and just leave markers. And then one day there was no more markers, and it was claimed that Estebanico was killed by Zuni Indians. And I thought, or did he just find his little piece of heaven and disappear? And that's usually been the case. So I wouldn't blame him either. So.
Send one of his people to go move the marker further and further away from him, and just keep him going off in another direction. Yeah,
because he had. I don't know why the natives would have killed him. He was known as a healer. When they come into contact with other tribes, they said he was a great healer. He was full of knowledge. The guy was like a Renaissance man, you know. He knew a little about everything. He was a good healer, and I'm sure the Indians would have valued that a great deal, or the Native Americans would have highly valued some, knowledge like that. So I don't know. I would think it's highly possible he just took off and found his little piece of heaven.
Jack
Yeah.
of Jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've come kind of circle back at a good time because that's one of the things I wanted to ask you a little bit more about. So, who do you think was involved with that whole Victorio Peak thing? Because here's the thing. I mean, we're talking from the estimation, especially like you have in the book, we're talking a massive quantity of gold and treasure in just this one spot, and that's one of the 7.
One of the 7.
Yeah, and so.
And I think the one near Georgetown, Texas, I believe, is another one. And that would be the second of the 7 that has been recovered, as far as I know. The others, I don't know if they've been recovered or not. I don't believe they have. But I would have to. I need to look deeper into the remaining 5 to know for sure. And the first one. People have asked me in the past, which one would I go to next? Kansas. There's a spot in Kansas that I want to check out. I really want to get there. As soon as I wrap up this 3rd book, I hope to get up to Kansas. So at least
Do we have a tease, like a working title of what this book is, or is that still secret?
That is still secret for now. I don't have a working title yet. I've got several. I've got 10 possibilities, and I'm not, for some reason, I can write the book. Everything flows easy, but when it comes to titling a book, I have a hard time with that. So,
can you give a teaser for the theme of this said mystery book?
It's
Keep going. Keep going.
I'm trying to get it here. Come on.
Yeah,
We'll pick and pick. Just a little.
If it's still a no, I'll stop. If it's still no, I'll stop.
No. There's connections with Jesse. I'm highlighting connections that Jesse had with other groups of people, political, religious, and other groups that were connected to Jesse in his day, as well as another well-known outlaw back in his day. I'm trying to highlight I believe there was a strong network of people, and they had deep and powerful connections around the country. Different religious, political, and otherwise. There were a lot of powerful people involved with Jesse, and it shows that it wasn't. All I'm trying to do is highlight the fact that Jesse and some of the other outlaws were much more than just crazy guys running around the old West robbing people.
There was a higher purpose to it.
Much higher.
There was a higher purpose to all of it.
Exactly.
They weren't just outlaws robbing banks.
Yep.
No, I'm just as you said that, because we just got done talking about the paintings, like where the paintings kind of point. There's always hidden stuff. If there was a higher purpose, there's always that thing. The magician's trick. Don't pay attention to this hand.
Yeah.
This is the hand that's doing stuff. So what if Jesse and his thing? Not only were they not just just bit players. What if they were some of the head ones? Like they're the magician. I'm over here. I've got the Pinkertons. I've got the U.S. military. I've got everybody's attention up here in this location. Meanwhile, the groups he's involved with are getting stuff done because nobody's watching.
Exactly.
Everybody's attention. All the telegraph wires. They're beaming everything that's going on here, and nobody's believing the crazy lady down in Kansas that there's a whole bunch of people digging holes over this lake because everybody's like, yeah, whatever, Myrtle. I want to know what's going on over there in Missouri, with the holdup that just happened. I don't care about guys digging a hole. Stop it.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's just
Even
start.
the way Jesse's gang, they would break up into several groups, and people would think, people would claim, Jesse James robbed a bank in Tennessee, and on the same day or the next morning robbed a bank in Arkansas or a stage in Arkansas. They would hit multiple targets at the same time or near the same time, and they would all be attributed to Jesse, which served to confuse those chasing them. And while everybody's looking at the bank, because the bank sounds, or the train sounds much more fantastic than, a stage got hit, the stage could have had information that they wanted. Maybe it wasn't always gold. I've always thought a lot of cases, I think it could have been letters or documents being transferred from one area to another, and they were told to hit that, get that document we needed. It could have been numerous things like that. So, like you're saying, you could have been doing the magician's trick on several levels.
Yeah, because you theorized that, the two of you in your other, the first book that we introduced, Mysterious Life and Fake Death, that there was a lot of things that occurred at the same time, which obviously, unless he is just writing overnight, there's absolutely no way he could be hitting, two states at the same, within a day apart. There's just no way.
Yeah.
And pulling it off. But, with the supposed ties to KGC, the Confederacy, and they're wanting to set themselves up, with basically think like doomsday preppers. You're setting up secret vaults all over the place where you can get to these things. It's not in one location. And what a better way to do it in the cover of night than when everybody that would be watching is currently heading towards St. Louis or something, because they have a rumor that Jesse James and his gang are getting ready to hit the coach.
Yeah. Well, and also like the Knights of the Golden Circle, just the Knights of the Golden Circle alone and all the hype about that group, I think they served as a perfect smokescreen. I'm sure there's, and I don't doubt at all the existence of the Knights of the Golden Circle. Their existence was a fact, but their the way they were blown way out of proportion. I think today, especially, they're blown way out of proportion on how important they were. I don't think they were nearly as important. The Knights of the Golden Circle, that is. I think they were used as a smokescreen. In many cases, they were just a bunch of, they were old guys who were trying to stick to the old way, and they all power hungry, and they wanted to keep their power and all their money at the expense of other people. And I think the KGC, without going deeper into what I think about them, I think they were a good smokescreen.
Wow.
Kind of like a useful idiot in a way, that old.
So what's stopping us from, I don't know, starting a juvenile detention center? They can dig holes all day, shovel deep, shovel width in the areas that you think it is, Not referencing holes or anything. Let's just start doing that.
Yeah.
So we're going to call it the Duke geographical survey group where we're just going to go around. We have to do 8 to 10 foot soil samples. That's the only way we can find is about
every day. Just a minute.
That's it.
We're testing soil humidity level.
Yeah, that's right. Every day. We need to dig holes every day.
Well, I want to congratulate you guys on booking your third appearance on the show, because I want to have you back on, later on too, just because I'm like, oh my God. I look at the clock. I'm like, we're running out of time. And it's like same day. It's like we could keep talking. I mean, we're not done yet. I'm just like, man, I go, you guys have done an amazing job. I appreciate it.
Even now, just recently, it's like we're just constantly finding more things and digging up more things, and it just is. I told Danny the other day, I was like, it just seems like it's never ending with the rabbit holes.
And yeah, like Teresa mentioned, there's a flood of information just a few days ago that I'm definitely putting in the third book.
Yeah,
I got an extension for the book yesterday for that reason, so I can fit all the new information into it. So
wow.
Yep.
Yeah,
It'd be silly of them not to. It's like, yeah, I got some new information. Yeah, it's too late. You met, deadlines. Sorry.
Yeah.
But
there's a point where I have to just say, okay, I'll stop for now, but I don't want to stop. I want to keep adding to the book, but eventually I have to find a stopping point. It's just too much information that keeps flowing in. Every time you open one door, another, 2 or 3 more seem to open sometimes.
Darn that fourth book I have to write now.
I really hope that you capture one of the finds. I mean, I really hope that it adds up for you all, and you all really discover it.
Thanks. Well, and that's another thing I wanted to mention. You know, when I started, I thought, who wouldn't want gold? I want to find the gold. I want the gold bad. There's a lot of things I want. I want a yacht in the Mediterranean and things like that. But at the same time, as I kept going and researching, and I found how far back these treasures go and how important they are, I, and I know some people roll their eyes like, God, you're corny, but I do think it's too important for one man. And it belongs to the people who put it there, which I believe are the true heirs of the Knights Templar, the Freemasons. And I think it belongs to Freemasonry. And there's a purpose behind it that's much bigger than my need for a yacht in the Mediterranean. And I still want a yacht in the Mediterranean, but I think I'll find another way to get there. I think it's for. It belongs to the Freemasons, and it's for a purpose. I think Francis Bacon's book, The New Atlantis, that he wrote, which I believe is a template for what America was meant to be, I think that could be one of the purposes of the treasures. And
see, that's why we need to have you back on. We didn't even touch on Sir Francis Bacon.
Yeah,
in this whole conversation. Like you said, he's a huge part of this.
Francis Bacon.
Yeah.
Francis Bacon, his mentor John Dee, Christopher Columbus, and his ties with the alleged ties with the Templar, the Knights of Christ in Portugal, and it just there's a lot of topics we could go for hours.
Exactly. That's why it was just.
Well, if you all want to come back, we'll be glad to have you back.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh,
yeah,
I'd love to be back.
We love you. We love you guys. I mean, we'll definitely would love to be back.
Definitely.
Even when it's not us, we love watching your show. Y'all have some amazing topics.
Well, thank you. Are you, by any chance, are you still a traveler? Are you still an active traveler?
Yes.
Well, maybe one day I can make it up that way and come to conveyance one day.
I'd love to meet you, and you're always welcome. It's in Liberty Hill, Texas.
Liberty Hill, Texas. Okay.
Yeah. Or if you ever go to Texas, if I have the money when you show up, I could drive somewhere to meet you. So I was always laughing. I thought, people think, oh, you're an author, you must have a lot of money, and I'm like, no.
When do you all hold grand session?
Do what?
When do you all hold grand session? What month is y'all grand session in?
The second Saturday of every month.
No, I'm saying Grand Lodge, the grand session.
Oh, Grand Lodge. Oh, sorry.
Grand session.
I'm a fellow craft right now, so
you still got a long way to go, my brother. You still got a long.
And I would be a third right now, but COVID put a halt to all that.
So you just started the journey. Oh, okay. Well, good.
Yeah.
Wish you well. Okay.
Yeah.
Some of the guys I know, I told them, I said, I feel like after all the research on the treasures and looking into alchemy, Rosicrucianism, Freemasons involvement and all that, I feel like I've been studying for years, decades. But then it's definitely, it's very exciting and it's definitely interesting.
Make it easier to get those degrees now because you've already got the knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's dream for me, honestly, with having you guys on, it's like, one, it's been really cool there, but at the same time, it's like, I hope that your appearances here translate into book sales. I really do. Because I gladly purchased that, the other one, getting ready for the show. And, and I was excited for this one. And I mean, I said, I think I've got one chapter left in this.
Next time, let him know. It'd be nice if he let us all know when he's gonna order, so we can put our order too. So I'm blaming it on him. Why you didn't have 2 more book sales? I mean,
that's why he's like, well, we didn't get a book. I'm like, did you hit purchase on Amazon? No. I don't know. There's this.
I'm stuck on our other author, Max Hawthorne, Chronos Rising. I'm just a huge sea person, so he has all these books about ancient sea creatures. So I gotta order your book too.
Yeah,
add it to the Amazon.
If you go to Inner Tradition, our publisher is Inner Traditions at innertraditions.com, and after the interview, I can connect you to the publicist with Inner Traditions, and she may send you a book or 2.
Awesome.
Okay.
Nice.
Awesome. Thank you.
I think we asked before, what's the best way for you to get the money? Is it through Amazon, or it really doesn't matter?
Yeah,
you get the same amount.
Barnes and Noble, Walmart, Amazon, everywhere.
I just want to make sure, like, we get you the most amount of money. Like, go to this specific place.
Innertraditions.com, they're selling it too. It's literally it's everywhere except for Antarctica, I guess.
Yeah,
You gotta get out there.
Hey, maybe one of these times when we get the dream thing, we'll take it with you, and then we can take a photo. It's like, nope, see, it made it. Here it is. Look at the smell. Here.
We get listeners everywhere. We have a guy from France or woman. I'm not exactly sure, but we got all across the world. So hopefully we get it out there too. Different, countries.
Yeah, that's
But
right.
that's the hope. I mean, everybody. Like I said, I'm not. It's not just because they're here. I mean, I honestly, I really love the books. Jesse James and the Lost Templar Treasure. It's hard to describe. I mean, I didn't have time to put up, all of the stuff. But I mean, you went in, and for people that are really visual, I mean, you have all the pictures of the templates, you have the maps, you have all the stuff as you go through it. Because especially, I think for a lot of people, especially the chapter where you really break down into like, here's 61 miles. You go in these things. If you were to just write that in words, people would you could see the eyes roll in the back of their head, but as you see the pictures, you're actually able to, as you read it, you're like, oh yeah, they're like, oh, that's cool. You can see it as you go.
Man, don't be surprised if I ordered a book and be in Fort Hood with the book trying to figure out where I can find it. I'll be like, hey, I think it's over here.
Oh God.
Like Mark says, everybody, please go buy a book because Teresa desperately wants to get to Italy.
No, he's trying to buy his yacht on the Mediterranean.
What's the thing about Italy?
They both could sail in the Mediterranean, and then as they get right to Italy, Dan can pick her out into Italy, let her spend time there for a while. He'd keep floating around, and then when she's ready, he can swing back by and pick her up.
Yep. Oh, and one thing I've never mentioned to anybody yet, other than Teresa, is and maybe I don't know. I don't even know if I should mention it, but I give 51% of my cut of book sales to feed hungry children.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
There we go. I'll make sure I put I'll put that out. I said we'll timestamp that too. So like we'll put that out on our little clip. For you here too, because that's the thing. I mean, especially if it's charity. I mean, it's like, man, that's impressive. So if everybody could just go, you're going to get a great book. You're going to definitely help a amazing cause as well. So
when you get that yacht, let me know. I have my boating license. I only been, operating like 12, 20-foot boats, but I can operate your yacht, so don't worry.
But if it's anything based off the video he showed of how he'd be a fishing charter, don't say no.
Hey, man, I'm not gonna take him out.
Picture a little 12-foot boat with about 3 outboard motors and just launching off of a wave. That's yeah.
Even a hurricane.
High school. A friend, and this is I'll try to keep that quick. A friend of mine had a 10-foot John boat, and we put a 25 horsepower Evinrude on it. And oh God, that thing flew across the lake. And we had to stack weight up in the front, and I was on the very tip of it, and you could see the bottom of the boat rippling, like it was about to just vaporize.
That's awesome.
I don't know what we were thinking, but it was an experience. And at the end of the trip, every rivet in that boat was loose, and it was leaking.
It's probably a good thing you're going that fast because you shook everything. If you had slowed down, you would have drowned.
Yeah, it probably is a good thing.
Yeah.
At the end of the trip, it was ready to. We had to do a lot of work to the boat. JB felt all over the bottom of it. So,
well, guys, I want to thank you again for being so willing to come on the show, and and just
we love you. We love this show.
Yeah, you guys are, too kind. I mean, like I said, we really appreciate it. I mean, I can't even, me and Chris were talking about it today. It's just, I'm still blown away with where we're at right now. I mean, I told him, I go, here we are, three guys that just randomly meet each other working here in Central Florida. And we're talking to 2 people from Texas that if we hadn't done this, I don't think the odds of us ever actually talking would not have, astronomical.
yeah, that's true.
And here we've talked twice, and we're, I feel like we're actually, creating a friendship between, with you guys and us. And it's just something, thank you, Mark Eddy, for introducing us to you guys. I mean, that's,
yeah.
Him and his show that he has with Barbara DeLong, the Nightlight.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody, give them credit, for doing this. And at the same time, go support them. But for you guys, like I said, I'm gonna keep touting this. Please go buy this book. And like I said, because I want to support you guys. Because one, it keeps the story, gives us something to read, and if the money keeps pouring in, they're going to give you a fourth book that's going to be even better. Because I want to find out now if my simple late night discovery of the name adding up to 33 means anything.
It could. It very well.
Yeah. So that's. Yeah, I love
that discovery. That's awesome.
And also, Mr. Duke, when you finish that journey, I'm gonna send you a belt buckle. Let me know when you finish your journey, and I'll get you your first Freemason belt buckle in the mail.
Thank you. I'll do that. I'll let you know. That would be cool. I'd be proud to wear it.
Thank you, sir.
Well, you guys, thank you again. Appreciate you sharing your night with us, and take care. We will get that out.
Thank you. We love it.
Thanks.
So have a great night. Yeah,
that's awesome.
I was thinking, hopefully I can meet you.
You all have a wonderful night too.
We will.
You too.
Yep. Yeah, you got it, Chris. Awesome. You got it.
Do it. Remove them?
Yep. We're done. We got to wrap it up here.
Broadcast. We're done.
I know. Why end it smoothly when it started so smoothly?
Hey, man.
We might as well just make this a complete circle and have it chaos in the beginning and end.
So literally the whole problem was I pulled a wire out and put it back in. That's what took me 20 minutes to get. I was like, what?
I don't know if you saw it. I was just randomly mashing buttons trying to hit whatever intro. I couldn't find it.
All I heard was no. I was like, because of wire. I swapped 3 wire. I'm done.
Yep. So brought to you by Broadspear Care. This is the chaotic thing that he likes to call home. So please sponsor him. Sponsor him. Please patronize him. Wow. Okay, this right here, this is 7-Eleven coffee. There's nothing in it, just coffee and creamer. That's it.
So.
But I mean, you would make with what I'm doing right now. If there's a lot of rum or something else mixed in, no. This is just coffee. This is just coffee. Nope. Anyway, so Broadspear Care, proud sponsor of this program. Go check them out. Use promo code 3beards with the capital P. You're going to save 20% off. Nanny Cakes, Nancy Burke, Nanny Cakes 407. Give her a call at 407-923-2898. And if you're in the Central Florida area, it's going to be the easiest way to get your cake, and you're going to save some serious money on that cake. So check that out. 3beardspodcast.com is our home. Go to patreon.com/3beardspodcast. Give us some support. Check us out on them there socials. Give us some support and some love, and we will love you for it as well. So thank you, everybody, for watching. Hopefully, we will do better here in about 20 minutes when we have Varla Ventura on for the next show. Everybody, thank you. We'll talk to you later. Good night.